We just had this character of this little fat kid that was a little bigoted jerk, you know, and it made us laugh. Yeah, and he became Cartman. He really started off as the fat kid that everyone picked on, and he was a jerk, and he was spoiled by his mother from the first episode, but he got darker and darker and darker and smarter.
He's a super evil genius.
He's pretty evil.
The most incorrigible South Park kid does bear a passing resemblance to Archie Bunker. Parker said they've been perfecting him for years.
You know, and then we talked about it, was like, you know, with your group of friends always changed, and there was always the fat kid and there was always the poor kid. You know, and sometimes I was the fat kid for a while and I was the poor kid, you know, and it was just like it went back and forth. But we knew we wanted to, and one of our favorite characters from older television was Archie Bunker. And we were like, you know, it sucks. You could never have an Archie Bunker on a show these days. And we said, well, what if we made him an 8-year-old? And that's really where Cartman came to be, was from Archie Bunker.
And so it wasn't until a little bit later that we saw syndicated runs of All in the Family. And we were, you know, really like, wow, this was, what happened to this stuff? Because it just went away when everything got so PC in the 80s. And, you know, you could never have had an Archie Bunker again. And it was really when we started talking about how could you bring an Archie Bunker back? What if you made him a little 8-year-old fat kid that really influenced one of our characters, Cartman, in the show, was based on Archie Bunker. We were watching All in the Family, and we were watching reruns of that in the you know, late 80s and early 90s and going, what happened to this kind of TV? What happened? Right. Like, why can there not be an Archie Bunker anymore? And then we realized, you know what we need is an Archie Bunker that's an 8-year-old child.
At least where I grew up, you know, it was definitely, it's winter all the time, except for like 1 month out of the year. And your friends were defined by your bus stop. I mean, it was just, there was always sort of the fat kid there and the poor kid, and you didn't choose your friends. It was who was at the bus stop with you. So
when Matt and I started talking about third grade experiences and things that happened in third grade, we realized that sort of no matter where you were from, they were similar. You know, you were a little bastard, and you know, you talked about disgusting things and had totally different values. And
you always had a fat friend.
Yeah, you always had a fat friend. You always had a poor friend. So that became Cartman and Kenny. And
discussing with Jason here about the inspiration for Cartman.
Yeah,
and we thought it was him, but is there really a Cartman?
Well, not really. I mean, it's sort of like with every character, you know, they always end up being pieces of a lot of people you meet, you know. And so, you know, Cartman's a little of me, it's a little of you, it's a little of all of us.
It's also like kids don't have those filters yet that we all have. So when Cartman says something, we've all thought that, but he'll just say it because he hasn't been taught not to yet.
You can have a little fat 8-year-old sort of say whatever he wants about any race because you forgive him because he's a little fat 8-year-old who doesn't know any better. This is how kids talk. This is what, you know, 4 little boys do when left alone. This is the things they say. So it was like just this kind of honest portrayal of, you know, there's the peanuts and that's nice and cute and everything, but here's how kids really are. And Cartman being the ultimate version of that, which is just completely self-serving, which most kids are. And, you know, that
Cartman's a little more evil than the average kid.
I don't think so.
A little more.
I think most kids are about that.
What's the power of profanity?
It certainly has made us a lot of money.
Is this real dialogue for kids?
Yes, we just.
Yeah, it's real dialogue for kind of us. Kids are naturally born egotistical, self-centered, greedy, and they need to be taught to live with other people.
We grew up around all these hippies just going, you know, society's so messed up, man, and our only hope is like the innocence, the purity of the child. And it's just like, no, dude, you got it backwards. Yeah. You know, it's like our only hope is society.
They put out a big pamphlet on how to stop South Park, basically, and how to write the sponsors and get it taken off the air. And it's actually a brilliant piece of literature because it's sort of, it literally has on it, you know, here's what the Bible says. Here's, you know, John 3:16. And here's what Cartman says, and let's compare the two things and see which is better for your child.
Then what Cartman's saying, wait a second,
yeah,
it's in direct contradiction to what Jesus said.
Yeah, Jesus said, I am the way. And Cartman says, you know, hey, fuckface, you know, so they say, so see, after seeing this, you can see why we need to get rid of South Park. And so
it's kind of like a really great piece of avant-garde abstract art.
It's really cool.
There's no question that my personal favorite character in the show is Cartman.
Basically, the whole last 5 minutes is Cartman really playing the role of a Bugs Bunny, just messing with Osama bin Laden.
Hey, look, an infidel! I remember when we did a show where Cartman was a Vietnamese prostitute.
$8, you give me $8, soldier boy!
The network said we couldn't have Cartman saying, sucky, sucky, $5.
Sucky, $5.
I think the biggest problem that the network had with Cartman's line, sucky, sucky, was the fact that it's a little boy.
They said, okay, you can say it 1 time. And we came back and said, how about if we say it 7 times? Just 7 times.
Sucky, $5.
And they said, no, you can say it 3 times. And we went back and forth, which is one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever been a part of. And we ended up with, I think we could say it 5 times, which is really what we wanted anyway.
This show also has that weird thing that Cartman, strangely, is really into photography. I was like, that's one of the funniest, weirdest little, like, weird Cartman idiosyncrasies is he's actually really good at and really into photography. Has really nice photography equipment.
Yeah, there's a few shows where if you really pay attention, you can see he's actually really into photography.
That's why it makes me laugh.
I remember with Scott Tenorman Must Die, it was for us, it's a big milestone in South Park only because it was the first time we realized maybe we're trying to do too much. We've just got this one A story of Cartman versus this guy, and it turned out so good that we really from then on started saying, let's forget B stories, let's forget C stories. For a while, we really were let's just do a really well-told A story. That was the biggest lesson we learned from that episode.
Because the first whole part of that episode is just Cartman, cat, and mouse, with just keep going back to Scott Tenorman with the pubes and that whole thing, and it didn't ever cut to a different thing.
Let's just have it keep going back and forth. We kept bringing up, Coyote and the Roadrunner and stuff like that. It was just kind of that kind of episode. And I know that the reason that a lot of the fans picked it was because it was such a Cartman-defining show.
Even the last season, the stuff I liked was Cartman being in love. Or was he? And like
we never fully determined, did we?
But him acting in love and what that meant to him. But also just like the thing where the boys took Cartman up to this cabin and broke his shit. There's this scene where the boys are like, they think Cartman's a troll. They take his computer and his cell phone and his laptop and they smash it apart with a sledgehammer, right? And he's like, he's offline now. He's got no online life. And there were people, teenagers especially, people online going, wow, man, like, that was a heavy episode. Like, they didn't even try to be funny.
And so almost all of my favorite episodes are, there's a character Cartman and the character Butters. And to me, those two characters, anytime that they're in a show that focuses around the two of them, I always love that episode.
If there's a scene where Cartman and Butters are in the same scene together and it's just the two of them, it writes itself. Like, we just go in the booth and start doing it. Not Cartman, he's Butters, we just go.
We always love when we have a great Butters and Cartman show. When you have those two as the main characters, it's like it's a little easier to write than the others just because they're such great characters. And so definitely either this or the death of Eric Cartman would have to be on my top list too.
I can see why Alcimo was on this list of fan favorites because it's Cartman puts himself in a terrible situation and you have to watch it unfold. And I remember when we came up with this episode, we really liked just the way the story developed, how it was Cartman doing something and getting caught and then, kind of fucking himself. And that's just always really satisfying with a character like Cartman.
Butters at that point in the show had been screwed over so many times by Cartman. And this time Cartman was finally getting what has come to him.
We did this thing where we set up this big cliffhanger. Who's Cartman's father? Thinking, who's going to give a fuck who Cartman's father is, right? Like, that'd be fun. Yeah, and every cliffhanger. And everyone did. Yeah. And we're like, find out in 4 weeks. And that fell on April Fool's. So we're like, we'll do a whole side episode that's Terrence and Phillip, and we won't even have the kids in it at all, right? Rebelling against our own show, basically. And it aired, and we're thinking, oh, people are going to love it. They're going to be so stoked that we fucked with them. And boy, Comedy Central just got flooded with calls. Fuck you! I'll never watch the show again.
There was things on the internet that was like, "Fuck you, Matt and Trey. I hate you. I wish you were dead. I'm never watching your show again." Like, whoa!
It was like your show was cool because it was rebels and it was different. And now we just want to hear Cartman be fat and Kenny die and Chef sing week after week.
And so we decided to wait 4 weeks to reveal who was Cartman's father. But then we realized that 4 weeks later was April 1st.
April Fool's Day. So we decided to do an April Fool's joke on our audience and not reveal who Cartman's father is, but instead do an entire episode starring our two favorite stick-figured farting Canadian characters, Terrence and Phillip.
Well, the audience responded in mass numbers.
What do you guys think you're doing over there at Comedy Central? I mean, you know what? People are waiting 4 weeks to see who the Cartman's father is, and you guys show Terrence and Phillip?
And I personally will never watch your stupid show again. That wasn't funny. That was stupid.
Audiences like jokes, but they don't like jokes on them.
Yeah, we'll never do that again.
Did you once say that you would never go out of ideas because Cartman would need 20 years to explain?
That's a good one. I remember saying that, but it does make sense. It does make sense, yeah.
I didn't say it, but you'd be proud to say it.
Yeah. It's funny because it's great. We're lucky enough that we've created a show where it's not about a family
or a kid. It's about a town,
Right.
you know, and in any given episode, we can focus on the teacher, or we can just focus on Cartman. We can just focus on the mailman. We can just focus on whatever we want. And so it really does lend itself very well to say, you know, we can sit down in the writer's room and go, what's going on in the world?
Yeah.
How do we have that happen in South Park?
We have to stop ourselves from making every show a Cartman show sometimes. I mean, you know what I mean? We all come up with different ideas. We're like, oh, you know, it'd be fucking funny. Cartman does this, and then you know, well, last week we had a Cartman show and the week before. So we try to make ourselves go spread out to different characters.
Every single season, I have this fear that, like, okay, next season's going to be the one where I run out. And we just never seem to. I think a lot of it has to do with the show itself. You know, we were lucky, it wasn't intentional, but we were lucky that we set up a show that was a town and not just, you know, the Cartman show.
It feels like everybody has an impression of Cartman.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so do you.
Good impersonation of Cartman.
You actually do Cartman.
Yes.
Could you do a little Cartman for us?
No.
Oh, come on. There's people to hear it. They love it. They live for it. They live for it. Just say, can you say this?
Late night with Jimmy Fallon sucks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
It's hard to get him to do that.
I'm sorry to make you do that, but
It's hard to get him to
everyone
do
really
that.
wants you to do it.
There's these voices Matt and I would always do.
Okay, it's not pad.
And the main one was a little fat kid that we would always do and talk about this little fat bastard.
iPad token? Funny, you don't seem to have one. I thought your family was rich. Nah, 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 blah, 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 blah.
You guys, Censorship, fucking fight. Censorship, I fucking
Cartman existed sort of before South Park did. It's this little voice that we do back and forth. Well, it's still like one of the most fun. Well, I mean, it's hard not to say Cartman, but that's the cool part is we've got a handful of characters that they're just always.
The real South Park is sort of right in the middle of Colorado, and it's still sort of in the area around like this town fair play that is very, you know, there's not much there. And I would, if I had all the money in the world, I would build a huge Cartman land right there and just make it like the most epic, like really hard to get to amusement park and just a real Cartman land. It'd be so awesome.
This is gonna be so great.
20 years ago, Parker and Stone immortalized their love for Casa Bonita in a South Park episode.
I feel like Cartman a lot here, you know, just going in there, and we could do this, and we could do that, you know, we could do that.
It really is. Watching Trey walk around and the emotional roller coaster of doing this, you know, he's feeling it as much as Cartman would. You know?
The Empire State Building has been lit up in Mormon colours. It's New York's ultimate sign of success. But for Matt and Trey, you get the feeling they'd rather be back in the studio keeping a low profile with Cartman and his foul-mouthed friends.
I have it perfect because I'm Cartman, but Cartman's not a real person. So it's like, you know, everyone knows Cartman, but they don't know me.
What would Cartman make of all of this?
He would have left by now, actually.